mercy upon thee, O Elohim, according to your loving kindness. According unto the multitude of your tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only, have I sinned, and done this evil in your sight, that you might be justified when you speak, and be clear when you judge. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you shall make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which you have broken may rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with your free spirit. Then will I teach transgressors your ways, and sinners shall be converted unto you. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O Elohim, the Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. O Yahuwah, open up my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. For you desire not sacrifice, else I would give it. You delight not in burnt offering. The sacrifices of Elohim are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. O Elohim, you will not despise. Do good in your good pleasure unto Zion. Build you the walls of Jerusalem. Then shall you be pleased with the sacrifices of righteousness, with burnt offering and whole burnt offering. Then shall they offer bulls upon thine altar.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Breaking Strongholds Ministries, good morning, Facebook Live. Happy Shabbat, happy Shabbat. This is the day that the Most High have made, so be glad and rejoice in this. Good morning, YouTube with Orlando keeping it simple. How's everybody doing this morning? I hope everybody have had a blessed week. I hope they have got the things that their heart. I hope you all have gotten the things that your heart desire. I hope the Most High have blessed you this week to be able to keep you and protect you and your family from the wickedness of the world today. So I just hope you gotten everything that you desire for this week. I hope He has really truly blessed you. I hope He has continued to pour wisdom and knowledge upon you. Because we have had some interesting information to come out on yesterday, where the nation or the country of Israel have acknowledged that the children of the Igbo tribe, which is which are the people who was a part of the Atlantic slave trade, are the true Israelites. So yesterday we came out, a brother from Boone Church in Atlanta, or Riverdale, came out yesterday telling, he came with an announcement and said that the nation of Israel, the country of Israel, have acknowledged that the Igbo tribe of Africa, Igbo is an extension of the Hebrew tribe is the original Hebrew Israelites. They are part of the original Hebrew Israelite. He's saying that the Igbo of Africa, which is a part of them is in Nigeria and scattered abroad, are the true Israelite, Hebrew Israelites, and that came from the nation of the country of Israel. So he's saying that the black people are the true Hebrew Israelites. But let me go ahead and get started this morning in Exodus chapter 20. And I want to say that the moray or the teacher in Boom Church in Riverdale, Georgia brought that out yesterday. And I sent it out to some people and I put it on Facebook. So, you know, that's a great thing because of the times that we're in. We need to understand that the Most High is moving in so many different ways. So we just got to be ready for that. We got to be ready for this new information that's about to come out. But in Exodus chapter 20, it reads 1 through 17. And El spake out these words, saying, I am Yahuwah thy El, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other Els before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah thy El, am a jealous El, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahuwah thy El in vain, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy works. But the seventh day is the Sabbath, or the Sabbath of the Lord of Yahuwah thy El. In it thou shalt not do any works, thou nor thy sons, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservants, nor thy maidservants, nor thy cattle, nor thy strangers that is within thy gates. For in 6 days Yahuwah made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahuwah blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy fathers and thy mother, that thy days be long upon the land which Yahuwah thy El giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Let us do the prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine to the kingdom, power to the glory, forever and ever. So let it be. So good morning again. Facebook Live, Breaking Strongholds Ministries, and YouTube with Orlando, keeping it simple. How you all doing this morning? How you all doing this morning? This has been a good week for me. I never know what the Most High want me to do until the last minute, and because he gives me my teachings through my experiences, and I like it. And because I can relate to it more when I go through something, to be able to understand it, even understand the moments even better. Just like he brought to mind yesterday, Hosea, how Hosea had to marry a whore in order for him to understand the experiences of what the Most High was going through with the children of Israel. Because a whore, she'd been with many men, and she's gotten children from many different men. But Hosea had to be able to endure her whoreness to be able to receive her and to keep her with him. Even though she may go out and have an affair and do all these other things, but Hosea had to allow her to come back to him. So the Most High allowed us to be a whore. He allowed us to go out and do whoredom. But he's such a great El that he's willing to receive us back after we went out there and did all the wickedness of the world. He will still allow us to come back, and he still will receive us. And that hit me like a ton of bricks yesterday. You know, sometimes you read text and you understand it, but you really don't understand it until the Spirit is upon you and you see it. But let's turn to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 through 48. Excuse me for cloaking. I get on my wife about that all the time. But I do it too, so I can't really say nothing. But Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 through 48. And the key verse is verse 44. And the key verse is verse 44, and it reads, "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse thee, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." Let me read that over. And it reads, "I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." If I may give a title to the text this morning, the title of the text this morning is, "Now is not the time to have hate in your heart." We have to rise to another level of consciousness. We have to rise to another level of consciousness. We have to rise to another level of consciousness. Rise to another level of consciousness. Consciousness comes from your thinking. Your thinking. On how you think. That's where consciousness comes from. So let me give you some words for today. Compassion. Compassion is feeling of sorrow or deep tenderness for one or for someone who is suffering or experiencing misfortunes. Sympathy and pity. That's what compassion is. Compassion is feeling of sorrow or deep tenderness for someone who is suffering or experiencing misfortunes. Compassion is sympathy or pity. But also you can have compassion for someone who you see is getting ready to go down the road of destruction. Okay, enemy. The word enemy. Enemy is one hateful towards or one hateful towards someone, or intending on harming someone, adversity, adversary, or enemy or foe. Okay? When we're looking at this in Matthew chapter 5, it's talking about the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes is talking about how you should act, how you should be, the way you should do it, and how you should do things. This is mostly red letters. It's when the Messiah or the Mashiach is talking to his disciples on how they should be and act towards one another. Regardless of, the disciples should have a higher consciousness of thinking because of who they are and what they're trying to do. And a lot of the times we think at the end of the day the people who take the high road will lose out. But in actuality, those who take the high road, what we call the high road, which is another level of consciousness or thinking, they wind up winning at the end. In the midst of people going through things in life, how they receive their experiences will either hinder their mental development, or it will enhance their mental development. And when I was talking to my daughter last night, my daughter looked at our experiences, or her experiences with me, in a negative way. So when she looked at my experiences in a negative way, it stopped her mental growth because she looked at herself as a victim. Or she looked at her as being, just as a victim, and not necessarily a hero or someone who overcame the adversities. So when she looked at herself that way, she responds to me in that way. And also, when you look at yourself as a victim or someone who's being used or mistreated, you look at yourself as that, you cannot grasp what the Most High is trying to do in your life. You cannot stand on solid ground. You cannot stand on His word because you're looking at yourself as a victim. Because you're not a victim. You are experiencing human moments to be able to help you enhance your life so that you can rise to another level of thinking or consciousness. But as long as you look at your life, as long as you have a human or earthly or victim mindset, you could never grasp what the Most High is doing in your life. You could never comprehend it because you're looking at it from a defeated purpose, or from a defeated mindset. Because when He said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me, that is a victorious, that is a person who knows that they can overcome any obstacle that is placed in their way. He had to have another mindset in order to be able to overcome whatever he was dealing with in life. And see, when we look at the highest level of consciousness or thinking, we thinking always doing right is wrong. We feel like we have to go tit for tat. We feel like we always have to do things that is on someone else's level of behavior or thinking or conversation, but in actuality, we don't have to stoop to their level. Because when we respond, say hypothetically, I remember when I was driving trucks at night, and it would be around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and a European would come on the radio, the CB radio, and say, "Hey, any ends out there? Any ends out there? I want to argue, you dirty da 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 da." He said a whole bunch of stuff, right? And you call them CB radio, you call them CB Hercules or CB Supermans, because they're doing this over the radio, and nobody see who's saying what's saying, and you know, they're doing this at a time when nobody can really see them and really approach them. But a lot of times at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I used to have guys come on the CB radio and say, "Hey, any ends out there?" And see, I understood the mindset of that person, because the simple fact, it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and the person might have been driving for 10, 11 hours at night during that day, and he has to go to a certain destination and be there at a certain time. But at the moment he was antagonizing me, he was tired. And he needed somebody to engage him in a conversation that would wake him up to get him to the next point. So what I said, when a person like that would come over to CB radio and say that to me, I will respond, "You must be tired of sleeping. You want to argue so it can get you to where you're trying to go." And the person would laugh on the radio. And I understood. I said, but I would come back to him and say, "Brother, the only thing you got to do is say, 'I'm tired. Can anybody talk to me while we traveling?'" But I would not entertain the negativity that came from the person. But I would engage him in a decent conversation, because the simple fact is, I understood that he was in need of something, even though he went about it in a negative way. See, our mindset has to be on a totally different level of consciousness to be able to experience the Most High. We cannot continue to think on a such low plane or earthly level to be able to, and think we can be able to understand the Mashiach or even the Messiah, because if we continue to think on that low level of plane, we will always respond in a human way. I would have responded, "Who you think?" And then he would have got what he wanted from me, because it would have gave him the opportunity to wake up, because he threw the bait out there for somebody to bite. And that's what your adversaries do. That's what your enemies do. They throw the bait out there for you to bite and see how you're going to bite. See how your response is going to be. But we have to be crafty enough to be able to pull out what's on the innermost part of them. And if we can't be crafty enough to be able to pull out what's on the innermost part of them, we're going to lose everything about it. And it's like this week I had a conversation with another person. And I was talking to him about the grocery stores. And I was talking to him about what he needed to do and da-da-da-da-da. And I was asking him questions. And at the end of all the questions, at the end of the conversation, he said, "I was afraid. I'm afraid." He said, "I'm afraid to be able to do, I'm afraid to what's coming. And because I'm afraid of what's coming, I'm like a deer caught in headlights. I can't move because of fear is taking over me, and it has stopped me from doing the things that I need to do." So at that moment, me understanding that the person was afraid, I had to engage him in a more in-depth conversation so that I could pull out what was in him so that he can understand what was in him so that he can be able to do what he needed to do. And I'm not saying I'm all this, that, and the other, but I'm just telling you my experiences. And also I had another conversation. We have to be able to understand that our level of consciousness, we have to rise our level of consciousness to a supreme being or a more Messiah consciousness than an earthly consciousness. Because some people are just not able to handle what's going on in the world today. And some people you're just going to have to grab by the hand and carry them with you. And you're going to have to take them along with you step by step to be able to help them to be able to overcome whatever they're going through. And that's what the Mashiach saying is that your character is going to have to supersede the mentality and the personality of the people that dwelling on the earth. See, you're going to have to rise to another level of consciousness right now. You can't continue to have the earthly consciousness and expect to meet and expect to be like the Mashiach. You can't be that way because it will never happen. So that's why he was talking about the Beatitude. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for their kingdom, for there is the kingdom of heaven." Poor in spirit means, let me tell you what poor in spirit means. Poor, the word poor. The word poor means, literally and often as noun or figurative, means distress. Poor in spirit means distress. They're in distress. They're beggars, physically and spiritually. That means they're distressed physically and they're beggars physically. They're distressed mentally, but they also are physically beggars too. They're poor too. So you're dealing with two people. You're dealing with a person that can have a mental issue, a distress, or stressed out, a dumb, or you're dealing with a person that is physically and financially poor. So you got to understand what type of person that you're dealing with to be able to know how to deal with that person. It says in verse 4 it says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." We're talking about the characteristics of people. So when we're trying to get to another level of consciousness or thinking, we can't have the earthly way of thinking. Because this is all about how you respond physically or spiritually to somebody. Either you're going to respond to them physically, or either you're going to respond to them spiritually. That's what's going to that's either how you're going to respond to people. Because everybody does not have the same gift. Everybody does not have the same experiences. Everybody does not have the same insight. So you cannot expect for your insight to be the same as theirs, because the Messiah has closed people's eyes. He has shut their ears up so that they can't hear. So it is time for you to intervene and to be able to help them along the way. But I want to explain something to you. Let's go to verse 43 in Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5 verse 43 says, "Ye have heard that it has been said that," let me read it over. "Ye have heard that it has been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy." Okay. When we're looking at the word neighbor, neighbor is coming from the perspective of the thought process. Even though that it's a physical and a spiritual neighbor. Okay? When you're looking at it from that perspective, you can't all, he's saying, love thy neighbor as thou shalt love thy neighbor. He said, don't just love people who think the way you think and live the way you live. And hate thy enemies. The enemy is the person who don't think the way you think. And the enemy is also could be a person from another tribe. Now, there's two types of enemies. It's an enemy that is from another tribe that's not in the 12 tribes of Israel, but it could be it could be your enemy that is part of the 12 tribes of Israel. It's two different types of tribes. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28:68. Because I want to be able to show you the difference between, because he never called your brothers your enemies. He just called them your brothers until you don't do goodwill against them. Your enemies in Deuteronomy 28:68. Let us talk about that. In Deuteronomy 28:68, and Yahuwah shall bring thee into Egypt, a bondage again, which is by way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. In this context, the word enemy means another nation. It doesn't mean the people in Israel or the 12 tribes of Israel. It doesn't mean that. It means another nation of people. That's what the word enemy means. How do I know that? Let's go to Exodus 34. Exodus 34:11. What is the enemy? It reads, observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I will drive out before thee the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Those are the enemies. Those are other tribes rather than the tribes of Israel. So when you're looking at the word enemies in Matthew chapter 5, it's not talking about other tribes. It's not talking about other tribes. It's talking about your brothers. This is a personal letter. So the enemies, two types of enemies. You can get one that is in the 12 tribes of Israel, which he doesn't say. He just called you brothers. He called them brothers. But enemies also is from another nation. Like hypothetically. Not hypothetically, but what Hebrews or black people experience in America is that we look at Europeans as our enemies because they're from another tribe. They are considered to be our enemies because they're from another tribe. And because of the things that they have done to us. Okay? So to break it down, but I can't say that my brother is my enemy because he's not my enemy. Okay? So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 2. Because I'm just defining to you what the word enemy is in 43. It says, and when Yahuwah thy El shall deliver them before thee, Thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Who should he not make covenant with? That's in verse 7. The Hittites, the Gushites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. Those nations are considered to be enemies. But when we go back to Matthew chapter 5, 43, it's not talking about those types of enemies. Why is it not talking about those types of enemies? Because in Matthew chapter 24, Matthew chapter 15 verse 24, the Messiah said, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So every nation that is outside of the house of Israel is an enemy to Israel. But in this text that the Messiah is talking about, he's talking about everybody in the house of Israel. This is a personal letter when you're dealing with your brothers and sisters. And see, a lot of the times my wife don't understand my action. She don't understand why I do what I do. And last night, see, her and I had a conversation. After my daughter and I got off the phone, and I just gave her some experiences on some of the things that I've been through in life with my family. And even though I went through the experiences that I had with my family, I still don't hate them. I still love my family. Because that's what I'm commanded to do. Is to love thy neighbor with all thy heart, soul, and mind. To love thy neighbor as thyself. So, even though I haven't had experiences with them, I have to still treat them as if I treat how I treat myself. Regardless of the situation. That's how you can go to another level of consciousness. You can't worry about what people are saying at the end of the day, because I thought about it the other day. My wife furnished this whole lady's house one time, couple of years ago, maybe a year ago.
Which one?
She one just recently.
Yeah, it's been 6 months.
Okay, it ain't been 6 months. My wife furnished this whole lady house. We went in there and did everything, put up the drapes, we did all this stuff, and I'm not doing it for accolades, but I'm just telling you what's going on. She went in there and furnished the whole lady house, right? And the lady got mad with my wife because my wife was giving her some advice. And the lady didn't even speak to my wife anymore. But I guarantee you, if the lady called my wife and wanted to be friends with my wife again, my wife would do it just because of who she is. And because that's what she's supposed to do. Because you can never allow somebody to stop you from being who you are personally because of their ignorance. She may not be the same towards her and giving her and blessing her, but she will be there for her. And see, that's the highest level of consciousness, is that you may not have to do the same thing, but you don't have to treat them. You don't have to treat them as such. You don't have to treat them as if they are your enemies. So when we're looking at verse back in Matthew chapter 5 verse 43, we understand that the Messiah is talking about not somebody. Don't just deal with people who think like you, who live right beside you. He said, but you also, it says, hate thy neighbor. He's talking about the children of Israel, not necessarily anybody else. This is specifically and personally for the children of Israel. And let's go to Exodus. Let's go to Leviticus 19. Leviticus 17 and 18. Because this is the precept of verse 43. It says, go to verse 17 and 18. Because the enemy in this context is talking about your brothers and sisters. It's not talking about other tribes of people. In Leviticus 19, verse 17 and 18, and it reads, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt not any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer him upon sin. The word suffer in that point there is to push or to engage sin upon him. Okay, and it says in verse 18, it says, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahuwah. So we still, in this context, it's telling us we still got to love the Hebrew Israelites, even though they hard-headed, stubborn, and crazy. And when you don't want to do it, you still got to do it. And see, me and my wife got into a conversation this morning about that. But it's nothing that you really can do if you want to represent the Most High. If you want to represent the Most High, you got to do His word and His will. No matter how hard-headed and stiff-necked these people are. Let's go to 1 John. 1 John 2 and 1, 2 and 11. Because sometimes when we read the Beatitudes, we think that we're talking about other tribes. No, it's not talking about other tribes. It's talking specifically about the children of Israel. 1 John 2 and 11, it reads, but he that hateth his brother is in darkness, and walk in darkness, and know not whether he go, because that darkness has blinded his eyes. And see, that's what I was telling my wife. See, this is the same stuff that I was telling my wife this morning. You know, the things that I'm trying to do, I got to do just because of who they are. Not because of anything else. I got to do them because of who they are. And that has been the struggle for her and I this last 2 weeks, because I said, well, baby, we got to do this. Nah. But we got to, because of who they are. And that's why you have to do it. Just because of who they are. Even your enemies, when they're on their dying bed, sometimes you hate to see your enemies on their dying bed. You say, I'm sorry to hear that, but let the Lord will be done. I don't care who, I ain't gonna say that, but I'm gonna just speak for the children of Israel. They don't want to see nobody suffer. See, and my wife was, this moment that we're in, we have to raise the level of consciousness. And it has to be a level of compassion towards foolish and crazy people, because people have made a lot of mistakes, have made decisions that caused them for their hair to come out their head. And then they're talking about the same people who's working in their head. But the person who's working in their head see their hair coming out because of the decision they made. But they have the audacity to talk about the person who's working in their head, when the person who's working in their head see their hair falling out. But the person who working in their head have compassion on them because they know they need them. So we got it. In this day and time, people have made a lot of bad decisions. And even in the midst of them making those bad decisions, we still got to have compassion for them. Why? Because they are relative. They are relative. Okay, let us go to also 1 John 3 and 12. 12 through 15. It says, 1 John 3, 12 through 15. It says, not as Cain. Understand that. Let me go back to verse 11 first. It said, this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Not as Cain. Why did he say not as Cain? Because Cain killed his brother. Cain hated his brother. Cain backbited on his brother. Cain did a lot of negativity towards his brother. That's why he led off and say, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, who slew his brother, and wherefore he slew him, because his own works were evil, and his brother righteous. Marvel not listen how he dressed it. Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you, we know that we have passed from death unto life, because we love the brethren. We love our kinfolks. He that loveth not his kinfolks abideth in death. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murder has eternal life abiding in him. Whereby perceive we the love of El, because he laid down his life for the nation of Israel. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So when we understand that in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, verse 43, the word neighbor is not talking about somebody who live right beside you, because you basically just want to live with somebody who you live right beside, somebody who you cool with and think like you. That's basically what you want to try to do. But he says, and hate thy enemies. Your enemies is somebody who you don't really want to deal with. Even within your family, you don't want to deal with them, but you got to deal with them because of who they are. It's two types of enemies. The enemies within your family and the enemy outside your family, outside your tribe. But the Messiah is talking about the people right here that is inside your tribe. He's talking about your brother in this reference. Verse 43 is talking about brethren. Okay? Or your family. Then verse 45 it reads, it says, but I say unto you, love your families, your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which spitefully use you and persecute you. The reason why The reason why he said that is because at the end of the day, you're going to cleanse them more so than they're cleansing you. They think they're doing something, but in actuality, you are the ones that's doing the work. And the reason why I say that is because I'm a living example of that. I remember a guy on my job. He almost got me fired. He talked about me. He stole from me. He did a lot of wicked stuff to me. When I say he did a lot of stuff to me, he did a lot. He tried to get me fired 2 or 3 times. I was still courteous to him. I distanced myself, but I was still courteous to him. And he did all these things to get a promotion on the job. He did all this stuff to try to get a promotion on the job. So when it was time for him to try to get the promotion on the job, the position came available. And when the position came available, those people who he was kissing up to on the job did not give him the job. They did not give him the job because they understood his character. He had a character that they could not trust. Because they're saying in the back of their minds, if he did that to his own brother, will he do that to us? So he came back to me and said, man, I'm hurt. The same person who he persecute, the same person who he tried to get fired, the same person who he stole from, he came to me and told me, man, I'm hurt. They didn't give me the job. Man, I done did all this stuff for them and they didn't give me the job. And the only thing I can say is blessed be the Messiah. Because the reward was that my righteousness and his wickedness didn't prevail. And my righteousness did, because I may not still be in the same position, but I have the same responsibilities with the higher pay. See, I was doing the job because of responsibilities, not because of the pay or the acknowledgement. And see, some people can be in a position because of the acknowledgement and the pay and not the responsibilities. See, he only did things because of the acknowledgement that he wanted and the authority that came with the position. So whatever he did, he didn't do it out of a pure heart. But I still prayed for this brother. And I wanted the best for him because I understood the sickness that was in him mentally because of what he was doing. And see, a lot of the times the Most High put people in your life not necessarily for you to backbite on them, but for you to pray for them. Because he's trying to show you that they're not on the same conscious level of thinking that you're on. And when you see that they're not on the same conscious level of thinking that you're on, you got to feel compassion for them because they're walking in darkness. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't exactly know what's happening to them. Even though they think they do, but consciously they don't. Subconsciously they don't. So when he say, but I say unto you, love your enemies, people who don't think like you, your brothers and sisters who don't think like you, who don't act like you, not the other tribes, but the brothers and your sisters who don't think and act like you. He said, bless them that curse you. And see, I'm experiencing all this stuff this week. It says, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you. It says, pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. That verse 45, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Let's go to Leviticus. It's a reason why he's telling us this. Leviticus 19:2. Holy. You still gonna have to be holy towards your brothers and sisters, even though they act crazy towards you. 19 Leviticus 19:2 says, "Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel." Because Matthew chapter 5 is just Leviticus 19. So it says, "Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for I, Yahuwah, your El, am holy." He's telling us that we have to be holy because our Father and the Shemiams are holy. So whatever we do is a representation of Him. So when we help our enemies, regardless of, our actions is representing Him, because we was whores, or we did whoredom in His eyes, but He received us back. So why can't we receive our brothers and sisters back, even though they committed whoredom towards us? Because we sinned against the Most High. So why can't we receive our brothers and sisters back who sinned against us, or who did us wrong? That's why he say, how many times should I forgive him? He says 70 times 7. No matter how crazy they act, you still got to forgive them. So the reason why we should do it, because we still representing the Messiah in us through our actions. It ain't saying that you got to be the best of friends or the best of buddies, but you still got to show goodwill towards him. Your intentions still got to be good towards him regardless of what he doing. Because that's still your brother in the back of your mind. You still want your brother to be good. Like me and my daughter were having a conversation last night. And that was her mentality. But I said, you know what? I still love you, baby. And I'm still here for you. Regardless of. You can act a fool all you want to. I'm still your dad and I still love you. Let's go to Amos. No, let's go to John. St. John. St. John 13. There shouldn't be any stipulations how far. It should be some stipulation, but there shouldn't be any stipulations on how far you deal with your relatives. Because if Christ came and died for his relatives, what are you willing to do for your relatives? Because Christ came and died for the children of Israel. He didn't die for the whole world. He died for the children of Israel. And the people who sold him out was the children of Israel. But he was willing to die on the cross or the tree for the children of Israel. So what are you willing to do for your relatives? How far are you willing to go? John, St. John 13:13, it says, ye call me master and Lord, and ye say, well, so I am. If I then, your Lord, your Yahuwah and master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. Understand that they acknowledging him as their head, as their Messiah. They're acknowledging him for being the master. We acknowledge Yahuwah or Yahshua as being the head of our life. So if Yeshua washed his servants' feet, shouldn't we wash our brothers and sisters' feet? Or do to them as the Messiah did for us? It says, for I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, listen. I understand this verse better. The servant is not greater than his Lord. Neither he that sent greater than he that sent him. So what's that saying? We ain't better than Yeshua. We're not better than the Mashiach. And since we're not better than him, we should do what he did. So that means that we should suffer for our brothers and sisters, regardless of. We got to do that, regardless of. Even though we may not want to. If he came and died for the children of Israel, that means that we got to fight and fight and fight with the children of Israel to get them to do what's right. Because they are brothers and sisters. That's why this letter is so personal, or this teaching is so personal, because sometimes we can cast away our relatives as if they don't mean a hill of beans. But no, they mean something in the Messiah's eyes. He gave us something that he didn't give them. He gave us insight. He gave us wisdom and knowledge and understanding to see what was going on. Even if they don't do, you got to do. You got to do for them, so when they come, you already expected for them to come and you already ready for it, so you ain't even mad because the Most High already prepared you for them coming back to you. Or coming to you, so you're not even mad, you just ready for them when they come. And you say it's all good, here you go, it ain't got nothing but love for you. That's the way you got to be. And see, that's what me and my wife been going through all week. All week. Because of who people are, you got to treat them as such. When you start addressing people personally, hey my brother, hey my sister, and they start to see you as a brother and sister, and you start to treat them as a brother and sister. But if you just see people, oh, they're just such and such, oh, they're just such, you treat them as such. And it's not personal. But when you start directing them, that's why Paul is using the word brethren so much, because he's addressing these letters as a personal letter to the people so they can understand. No, you my brother. We came from the same tribe. We came from the same father. So he's addressing them that way because it's a personal. You just can't, even though sometimes I say some stuff in my head, but I just can't cast people away. I get frustrated with them, but I don't cast them away because I know who they are to me. Because black women or Hebrew women experience the same thing on the job. Brothers experience the same things in the street in front of police and on the job. So if we understand that, we got to treat brothers and sisters as such. Let's go to Amos. Amos 3. We'll go to verse 2 first. You only have, I know, all the families. You only have, I know, of all the families of the earth. He's talking about the children of Israel. Listen, let me go to verse 1 first. It says, hear this word that Yahuwah has spoken against you, O children of Israel. So this is to the children of Israel. Hear this word that Yahuwah has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. See, the Most High don't know nobody else but us. He only deals with us. So we should only deal with our people. It says, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. Can two walk together except they be agreed? Will a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Will a young lion cry out of his den if he had been taken nothing? It says, can two walk together except they agree? See, we have to be holy. And how can we be holy? How can we walk together except they agree? How did the Messiah become the Messiah? In John 1:14 it says, and the Word was made flesh and dwelled among us. The Word and the flesh has to merge together to become one. You and your brothers have to merge together to become a family. Stick together through the thick and thins of life. So let's go back to Matthew chapter 5. I'm about finished. Verse 46. And the reason why he's saying this is because you can just be anything you want to be. You don't necessarily have to be a true holy person. You can say one thing, but your action can mean something totally different. Okay. He gave you an example in 45 and 46. These are examples. Okay. Verse 45 and 46 are examples. He said that ye may be the children of verse 46 and 47. It says that, I'm going to go back to verse 45. It says that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. Now, this is an example. Verse 46 and 47. It says, for if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? For if you salute your brethren only, meaning the people who think like you and act like you and live by you, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? He said, you're no better than a hypocrite if you just deal with the people who have the same like mind as you. Then treat people the same way if you only deal with the people that has the like mindset as you in your family. And that's why most families are destroyed today, because they only deal with the family members that think like them and act like them. They don't want to go outside of the boundaries and deal with somebody that is not like them in their family. The first thing they say, nah, girl, I don't deal with him. I don't deal with her because of such and such. Nah, man, I don't deal with my cousin because he don't strung out on crack, da-da-da-da. What good are you if you don't want to deal with people who got afflictions? What good are you if you don't want to deal with people who got problems? What good are you if you're not willing to help those people who down out in the dumps? What good are you to the Most High? You ain't no good to him if you only want to deal with people that is on your level. Because, like my wife was telling somebody the other day, they are two totally different people. Because one think one way and the other think totally opposite. But both can learn from each other, but are they willing to do it? It's just like how we cast away the homeless or the less fortunate people. But in this day and time, the best advice you can get and who you can get it from is a less fortunate person. Because they have been and they are where you're going to be. A lot of us going to be homeless. A lot of people of us going to be broke. A lot of us people going to be out here suffering and not have no food to eat for a couple of days. And the best person you can ask is the person who experienced that. And who is that? The less fortunate. The people who be on those corners who holding those signs. The people who got them dirty clothes on. You got to ask them, well, how you take a bath? Well, where did you get food from? How did you stay cold? How did you stay warm when it was cold? But the same people we cast away is the same people we may be or when we may need one day. Because when they don't raise this inflation or the interest rate, the housing market finna crash. It's finna be a Great Depression on the land. It's finna be a Great Depression on the land. And you looking down on somebody who not like you, and that may be the same person who you may need. Okay, and then it says, but ye therefore perfect, even as your Father is in heaven perfect. What does the word perfect mean? The word perfect means complete in various applications of labor, growth, mental, and moral character. Neutral, completeness, full of age. Perfect means properly the point aimed at as a limit. That is, application, conclusion of an act or state. Termination, literally and figuratively, mean the results. When it says perfect, when you do what the Most High do, is results. It is determination. It is the final. That means that you're an example of Him. When you have an above consciousness on earth, when you think more than what you should, when you just stop looking at people the way they are and look at them as who they are. Let's go to Exodus. 22. (21) through 24. It reads, Thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. And ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. It's a blessing when you become holy. It's a blessing when you become holy. When you treat the less fortunate better. When you treat your relatives who consider to be your enemies better than they deserve to be treated. Because you understand that they are in darkness and you walking in the light. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 22. (7 through 9). It says, In thee have thou set light by thy father and mother. In thee have they set light by father and mothers. In the midst of thee have they dealt by oppression with the strangers. In thee have they vexed the fatherless and the widow. Thou hast despised my holy things and hast profaned my Sabbath. In thee are men that carry tails to shed blood. In thee they eat upon the mountains in the midst of thee, and commit lawlessness. In thee have they discovered their father nakedness. In thee have they humbled her that was separate, set apart for pollution. Verse 13, Behold, therefore I have smitten my hand at thy dishonest game which thou hast made, and at thy blood which has been in the midst of thee. It says, verse 15, I will scatter thee among the heathen, and disperse thee in the countries, and disperse thee in the countries, and consume thy filthiness out of thee. See, when we don't do good to people, and the Most High see that they're in need of it, and we know they're in need of it, He's going to punish us for it. But let us go to Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah 7. If we don't do what the Most High asks us to do, we're going to get blessed. We won't be blessed. We won't get blessed for it. But if we do, we're going to get blessed. In Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 6 and 7, it says, If ye oppress not the strangers, if ye oppress not the strangers, the fatherless, the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other idols to your hurt, Then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. It's a blessing when we do right to the widows. It's a blessing to the ones that we do the fatherless. It's a blessing. We get blessed by that. In the story of Ruth, Ruth and Naomi. Ruth was Naomi's daughter-in-law. But both of them was hungry because they was both widows. But Ruth went and gazed in the fields of Boaz. But Boaz saw that she was less fortunate. And Boaz allowed her to be able to pick up the corners of the leftovers that was in his fields. And see, we have to be able to help those people who are less fortunate, because chapter 2 in the book of Ruth, it is talking about how Boaz was kind to Ruth in her time of despair. Even though they came from the same lineage, Boaz was kind to this poor woman in a season of her despair. In verse 2 in chapter 2, it says, and Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me now go to the fields and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. Naomi said to Ruth, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the fields after the reapers. And her hips was to light on a part of the field, beginning unto Boaz, who was the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said unto the reapers, Yahuwah be with you. And they answered him, Yahuwah bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servants that were set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitess damsel that came back with Naomi out of the countries of Moab. And then verse 9 it says, let thy eyes be on the fields that they do reap, and go after them. I have not charged the young men that they should not touch thee. And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Boaz gave empathy to Ruth because of her conditions. Boaz allowed Ruth to eat in his fields because of her desolate state. And when Boaz did that, he was able to be blessed because he saw that Ruth and Naomi was in need of something. They was in a physical need of something. What am I saying? Now is not the time to have hate in your heart. We have to rise to another level of consciousness through our compassion towards our brothers and sisters. That's what we got to do. Regardless of where they are, we still have to rise to a level of consciousness. And we have to function in compassion towards them. That is the only way we can be blessed. That's the only way that we can be able to receive our reward. See, a lot of people don't even know what me and my wife do, or my wife and I do behind closed doors, or to and for other people. And the reason why we do it is because of how we see them. And the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now is because of how I see people. And you should be now doing things for people because of who they are and because of how you see them, but because of the state that they're in. Everybody don't have the conscious level of thinking that you do. And because they don't have the conscious level of thinking that you do, the Most High probably have given you more than they have given them. So you should be helping them now more than ever before, because the simple fact is, they're going to need you in the future. They're going to need you. And if you don't prepare for that, everything is going to be messed up. It's going to infringe on you more than you can imagine. See, she only got the corners of the fields. She only got the drops from the reapers. So every time they pick up 100, she may get one corn, one stalk of corn. Every time they pull 100 hulls of corn, she may get one. And boy, so don't let her have that little one. That one ain't nothing. We getting 100. You gonna get mad with her because she get 100? Because she get one out of the 100? Shut up, man. She probably ain't getting no more than 10 or 15 a day. And we getting tens and thousands. Shut up. So that concludes the teaching for today. I hope that you all understand that we got to, now is not the time to have hate in your heart. We have to rise to another level of consciousness. We got to do things and be holy to people who don't even deserve it. Because we know at the end of the day, if we don't do it, they're going to be out there stranded. And I'm going to say this in closing. I remember when I used to train people how to drive, and I used to tell them about preparing, right? And I used to use little young ladies that got about 3 and 4 babies. 2 and 3, 4 babies, 18, 19, 20 years old, who got 3 and 4 babies. And I used to tell them, I said, well, what you think going to happen to those young ladies who got those 3 and 4 babies and they didn't prepare for what's coming? I said, what you think going to happen to those 3 or 4 babies and that mother who didn't prepare for it because she was out in the street doing this and because she was out in the street doing that? I said, what you think going to happen to those kids? Even though you may see it coming down the road, what you think going to happen to those kids if she didn't prepare? What you think going to happen to these older women, older grandmothers who didn't have the money to prepare because they're in the senior community? What you think going to happen to the grandmamas? who ain't buying extra food because they're on a fixed income because they can't afford it, what you think gonna happen to them? We just gonna sit by and talk about them? Or we gonna do something about it? Let me read you something.